All right, let's do. I'm gonna do just a quick little like shtick on what we're about. So today we're gonna cover. We set out a very broad topic. The three of us. We're gonna talk about onboarding.
Mhm.
We're gonna keep it pretty broad, and I'm sure there will be points where Chad, myself, or Renata will dig in because it's an area that we're particularly passionate about. Um, and yeah, so I'm a junior full stack developer from Calgary, Canada, and yeah, I'm just happy to be part of this little crew, this chit chat. You want to fire away, Renata?
Yes. Hello, my name is Renata. I'm a training developer in London, and I just got my first job in development, so it was an interesting and new experience.
Wow.
Chat.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I'm Chad Stewart. I'm a software developer from Kingston, Jamaica. I've been kind of coding. Well, I've been coding for a while, but I started my career really last year or two years ago. And it's been a little bit bumpy, but yeah, yeah, pretty much it. Yeah.
That's really cool. So I I did like a tiny smidgen little bit of research before our chat, and earlier this week I mentioned that we were going to do an onboarding session, and I tweeted it, and we got a really good tweet from Nick Taylor on Twitter. He was talking. Apparently, he asked a bunch of people on Dev2 about what is onboarding for them, and there was like a whole bunch of really great feedback and everything like that. But before we get into that, I'm thinking, why don't we talk about what we think onboarding is to us? Like, what is that?
hmm who wants to take it first? That question.
You started.
Uh,
I think Chad should go first because since he was our spiritual leader on this one, with the I'm going to write a blog post.
oh yeah, I still need to. Oh god. All right, so I guess I should explain the situation. So I recently had a job that I only stayed at for a very short time, 2 weeks. Um, what ended up happening is that I joined the organization. They gave me the project, and there were a few issues with the project on at start where there were issues with the tools that they wanted me to use, which I wasn't completely familiar with. Um, and then they more or less kind of it was a sink or swim type deal. They just kind of gave me work to do. It wasn't particularly well organized. I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing, um, while trying to kind of get used to the team and so on and so forth. What ended up happening is I wasn't able to deliver on the work that they gave me to do, and they more or less kicked me off the project right afterwards. And what happened? I think it was on Monday or Tuesday where I was so frustrated that I posted about companies need to have an onboarding process. Like you can't just have somebody come in and then just give them work and expect them to do well. Period. At all. Like expect them to produce anything, much less produce it well. And that's kind of, I guess, why we're all here. Like for me, onboarding, because I never answered the question officially. For me, onboarding is just giving the person coming in all the tools that they would need to be successful at the job. So I guess I'll focus mostly on developers, like giving them at least time to understand the code base. Because what I found is that at this particular job, everybody was just like, "Oh, you can do these tools, or you have this amount of experience, you should be fine." And it's like, yeah, that's kind of true, except I don't know what this code base is. I don't know the thought process behind the the why you built it this way. I don't know the project itself. I don't know what we're trying to deliver. You know, I'm a front end developer, so I didn't know. Well, I there were some things about the screens, about what it's supposed to look like, but
Mhm.
what I actually had to work on, there was no screens for. So I had to use my discretion,
And so
discretion.
by screens, let me just clarify. You mean like mock-ups, right?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
talking about
Sorry.
like
Mockups. Yeah, I
are you
couldn't
talking
think of
about
a better
mock-ups like
phrase.
no worries. It could be in your local vernacular, like maybe that's what people say there, right? We're all on
Yeah.
different continents and different languages, right? So or Renata's like in three languages, probably, because Brazil it's Portuguese, and then who knows? Maybe she's like got Spanish nailed down too. So we know she's got English nailed down. Or Chad and I are totally hooped.
Weirdly enough, I never managed to learn Spanish. I don't know why. I tried, but not my language, just English and Portuguese. But yeah, sometimes it does that. You just translated something directly from your language, and it makes sense in your head, and then people are just like, "What you're talking about?" Yeah, that bilingual people problems.
Mhm.
Totally right. So you didn't have low fidelity or high fidelity graphics for like
No,
mockups.
nothing.
Yeah,
No, at
nothing.
least
And
for
then
the thing that I was supposed to be doing. Like there were mock-ups for the site, and the site had some stuff done, but um, but for what I needed to do specific, there was a lot of confusion for the work that I was supposed to be doing.
okay,
Because they had
let's.
they had a board, like
Oh,
a Jira board, or they had Jira.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Hold on, Chad. Yeah. I was just gonna say. So let's see what Renata's. Let's talk about Renata's definition of onboarding and see. Let's get a little bit of
Oh,
a
yes,
broader
yes, yes.
circle. Yeah. So Renata, what do you like in your mind when you're thinking about onboarding? What is that?
Yeah, I think in my institution it was a little bit different because it was my first job, so I knew how to deal with projects that I built myself from scratch. Haven't had the experience to actually work on someone else's code. So my expectations was to actually, I know it sounds a little bit lazy, but to be actually someone grabbing me by the hand and just like show me how everything worked, just like show me the building, but by building I mean the code base.
Mhm.
Because suddenly I was working projects with like 400 lines, and then I got one with 400 folders, and it just was a little bit overwhelming when I first actually downloaded, and I was like, I don't know how to navigate this. So the first
Mhm.
weeks I was expecting like someone explaining me how does everything is connected and what was expected of me as well. Because as a junior, I didn't have anything to compare, like what should I be doing and what I shouldn't. So that's what I expect on new onboarding. What the job I need to be do, what the job I need to do, and how should I do it? That's
Mhm.
the main goal I wanted, like when I first started. Uh, but yeah.
That sounds really good, like off the cuff, right? So when the okay, so before we get into discussion, all right? So onboarding, I'll probably share that one as well, right? Onboarding for me is I'd say is very similar to what Renata and Chad are talking about. I wrote an onboarding document once when I was living in the UK, and it was about 40 pages long. And what it did is it had the first week, every day, there was like some questions to ask, some questions to ask yourself, so an area for notes to like, hey, did you learn about this? Did you learn about that? Did you talk? Sometimes I even said, did you talk to this person about this? Like maybe it was like, get your email password set up, and did you talk to this person, right? Because they need to establish those relationships. And then this was a non-software job, by the way. It was IT job, but not software in this case. And then after the first week, it was every week, and then after the first month, it was every month. until their probation was over. And at the end of every week, I asked them to write about what their experience was that week, what they learned, what their struggles were. So they had a lot of clarity every time we would talk about their progress. A lot of companies, one of my issues has always been what a lot of companies are like, oh, we'll tell you about your review after 3 months. And I'm like, okay, well, so then you're fired or hired. And I'm like, but that's really, to me, a waste because lots of people want to do well, like the vast majority. And so if you're sitting down with them once a week and saying, hey, Roger, I noticed this one thing. If you could do this one thing, you'd do a lot better. Okay. So you do that one thing. A couple weeks later, you find one more thing and you say, hey, if you do this thing, by the end of that 3 months, you've corrected 10 of the first things as a manager on your list. That person's your employee. And you haven't overwhelmed them because you got 3 months to do it. You don't need them to be perfect after 1 week. I learned that from reffing. At the end of every game, you could find 30 things wrong with any junior ref. 30 things, just like that. But no ref can fix 30 things. No person can fix 30 things. So you just say, what are you working on now? And they say, oh, I'm working on my, this rule. And you're like, that's really good. You're doing better. Yeah. The next one you should work on is this. I think that's your next biggest thing. And then you watch throughout the winter, this ref keeps getting better and better and better and better. And I think employees and employers should be the same way. That's, for me, onboarding. I just thought I would share a different area that we've all talked than what we've all talked about. For me, that's the behavior pattern I'm looking for. I really like Renata's behavior, like when it comes to like what steps specifically. I thought that was really good. And then Chad, I liked obviously some of the color that you gave with regards to some of the steps where people can do fall on their lips. I like to say a lip stand.
Yeah, but the thing about like feedback you mentioned, it was something that I kind of missed in the beginning because it was hard for me to understand like if I'm doing my job properly, like, or if am I going too slow? Am I going fast enough? So I did like came to my manager to ask, and should always come like, no, you're doing fine. I can see that you're doing your work, and I can see that you're doing in the time we thought you would. So it's fine. But it didn't felt like enough. So I actually did an Excel sheet where I wrote my personal tick stats. So yeah, because we use Kanban in the company. So every ticket that I would get for myself, I would like write down what it was about, in what area, what are the things that I thought I did well, and all the things I thought I needed to improve. So in a way for me to give input to myself about how to actually improve my own work. But then I think it's a little bit extremist, and I think I could do that because I was a junior and I was not expected to do things fast. So I could actually take the time to critically think about my own work, and it helped me a lot. Because like sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed by the situation you are in the moment. So you are being onboarded and you just got this new situation that you haven't seen before. And then suddenly it's just all new again, and you just think that, well, how to actually deal with it. But if you don't have like a process already built on that you can rely on, it sometimes can be a little bit tricky just to figure it by yourself. So I started building it by myself with my own thought process. But
yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say that's so cool because my first programming job, that was the thing. Like I didn't know, like, am I slow? Am I fast? What level of thinking did they want? Because let's be honest, you can think a lot, right? And so then you write 100 lines of code instead of 200, or you write 20 because you were thinking really hard, right? Like, you could have finished in all three circumstances, but some employers, they just want volume and they don't care how sloppy it is, and other employers are like, we really want high quality. If it takes you a day or a week or whatever, that's all they care about, right? But you don't know, and that's an anxiety driven event for me. I just like,
Yeah,
It's
oh, go ahead. Sorry. I don't
no,
know. Oh, well, yeah, I agree. I agree. I guess in terms of the time thing, for my previous job before the one that I was describing, um, we had an agile process, and I felt like, at least for me, um, the way I kind of viewed my own progress was the amount of action items I could take up in a sprint, and the sprint was a week. And like at first, I would struggle with something. I would struggle throughout the week. I would get it done. Like, I generally was very good at choosing something that was around my skill level to complete. Maybe I have enough time to do research and so on and so forth. Um, but like eventually I kind of realized, oh, I'm getting a lot done, or I maybe I undershot because I chose a bunch of stuff and I got it done halfway in the week, and I might need to choose more stuff, or I need to choose harder things, next time. And that's kind of how I kind of you know, rated myself. Um, but yeah, I think like I guess going with the agile kind of thought process, I think if you can have like an idea of how many stories or stories, I don't want to say stories, but how many things you can take up in a sprint, and how many of them you can complete, like I think that would be a really good like metric for people to use, that is really simple, assuming obviously your shop uses agile. But it'd be really simple. It's something that, especially on the team, you can share with everybody. Oh, this is how many I can do. And, like, I feel like it just makes it really simple to at least start judging yourself, if you don't already start judging, start like kind of, you know, seeing how much stuff you can do. And it's good to be able to gauge your progress, you know what I mean? Because like I said, at first I was barely getting one thing done throughout the week, and then I was taking up multiple things by the end of my tenure there, and it was a bit of a proud moment. So um you know I would say also, big ups to my team for being very good with the agile process to allow me to kind of have that stability, so that I could constantly, you know, judge myself through using that metric.
yeah, and I think like even when you are like an experienced dev, when you're first starting a new product in a new company, it will take you a while to actually understand it. And once you are actually working on it for a while, then perhaps you see an issue and be like, oh yeah, it's just this, because you already know what is happening behind it. And I
yeah.
think it's important to actually give people this time, the beginning, just to get themselves acquainted. Like,
Mhm. The I like the agile thing. Definitely making things in a smaller bite is really helpful. But I also think when you're comparing yourself, it's a self destroy. It's like self inflicted, like it's destruction on its own, because like you hop on a team, and I remember this because I did a testing job before I became a developer, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, so I'm gonna do this, 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 and this week." I jumped on this mature team. Eh? I was like the greenest you could possibly be, and everybody was doing all this stuff, and they do 10 things that week and 15 things that week, and I would do like one thing that week. And I don't know, that didn't really feel good to me. I think sometimes managers have to take an active role in what their employees might be thinking at that time when they're new and junior, especially in programming where it's so easy to the imposter syndrome sort of thing. Like you just don't know what you know, and I think managers need to like really work with new developers, and they need to say things like, hey, let's take this one, I'll work with you through the week, and that's all you got to do this week. Just do that one. And you're like, really? I only have to do one? And he's like, yeah. If you do that one, I'm going to be really happy, and I'll be here all week. We'll talk for an hour at least every day, and then that junior developer is going to perform probably even better. Like if maybe he was being optimistic that you could maybe finish it, I bet you he's going to finish it now because he's energized. He's like, wow, if I finish this, my boss, this one thing, my boss will be impressed. He doesn't know that the boss is like, yeah, you might finish it, but I'll support you and you'll feel supported and you'll get there. You know what I mean? You don't need to know. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. I
exactly.
thought that was the biggest thing.
Now, yes, I think like because you hired someone that then the default thinking should be that you trust this person to be able to do the job you want them to do. And they don't need to know that you you think they might need more time and everything, but you need to give them this confidence that they actually they are there for a reason. They're not there just because they got there by accident, and just give them the confidence that perhaps they lack. Because well, imposter syndrome it is a thing, so everybody should be very cautious about that and just not assume that people know that they are good enough, but also just give them the feedback they need. Even if the feedback sometimes is not the best one, because also if someone just comes and say to you, always like, oh, you're doing great, it can sound like fake, as like
Hmm.
you're not actually put any thought on my process. Well, if you actually critically see the work and just like, well, perhaps you should do this and X and Y, it would be better. But then you're just like improving the process and actually working with them, not just ending the work and hoping for the best.
Yeah, yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I think that's like one of the old management things, like where you're not supposed to say, "Oh, good job." You're not even supposed to do that in a relationship. You're never supposed to be like obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but for me, it's a wife, right? You're not supposed to say, "Oh, babe, you're so awesome," or "You're so good," or these very uh, non-specific compliments. You're supposed to think carefully, like, what is the thing that I'm trying to say? Like, what is the detail inside? And you're supposed to be like, hey, I really love that you bought this painting and put this on the wall, and it totally brings the room together. Now that's a compliment, right? Like, because maybe it's she spent the last month looking for something like that, or maybe it's a Christmas present, or whatever the context is. It matters to them, and it has to be specific. And if you go up to a colleague and you're like, "Oh, good job today," good job. How can they build on that?
How do they know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also wanted to kind of touch on something as well. About about I feel like the team should also be very much encouraging, because like your manager is one person. You may have a team of 5 people. You may have a team of 10 people. And just getting some encouragement from your team would be really good as well. And it may not necessarily just be encouragement, like may not necessarily be like, "Yeah, you did a great job today," or you can work on this or something. Like maybe having a conversation, about what they're supposed to do, or not even necessarily what they're supposed to do. Maybe just a chill conversation about stuff. Like that's something another good thing that my old team did is that they were very good about team building and camaraderie and so on and so forth. Like I don't know if this is what you were trying to get at, but there is definitely a lack of the soft skills, or I'm not sure if soft skills are the right word, but a lack of the social aspect of the job that are very much important, very much important for somebody to feel accepted and want to do their best work. You know what I
Team.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about team
So
building. Yeah.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. It's a totally
Like,
different thing. And I agree with you 100%. That's also very important.
mhm, mhm,
What do you think, Renato, about team stuff?
Yeah, yeah, actually, I can totally relate with that because I started during the quarantine, so I never met anyone from my team personally. So, and we are all beginners because our team was just with trainees. There's no senior people in there. So in the beginning, it was a little bit interesting because it's people that I have never seen before. On how do we actually create a relationship with them? How do we ask for help or something? And what started happening is like we would have like, for example, our stand up, and we kind of everybody would leave, like our manager, agile lead, and it would just stay us. And we kind of started like just talking about like anything, like about our personal issues, about things that were happening, sometimes about things we were struggling. Like, oh, I can't for the life of me understand how this simple thing works. And then everybody from the team actually started working together. But to be honest, like we're a small one, we were like five at the time, and it helped a lot to we actually be trust in each other because suddenly I knew I could count on them, not just to ask for help, but just to sometimes like if I just feeling stressed about something, just to vent to someone, or just simply if I was feeling lonely because I've been working at home non-stop without seeing a human face for a long time, just simply to talk to someone with, through a ticket, and not necessarily because I needed to, but because I wanted to, and it helped greatly. And I think it was like one of the main things that helped our team actually be so great was because we started knowing each other as people, not just as developers.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's classic team building, even sports and stuff like that, right? People who work
mhm.
well together work well, right? Well, yeah, it's two different, completely different dynamics. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like, sometimes, like, I worked in a place where one of my first developer jobs, they started drinking anywhere between 11 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, any day during the week, and they thought that was a good way to build the team. And I was like, no, it's for me, it's not. I was like, becoming an alcoholic because of a job is not
Yeah.
a life goal of mine. I had literally, like, my newborn was literally newborn, like 6 months old at that point, my baby, and I'm just sitting there thinking, like, yeah, showing up at my doorstep, half obliterated on a Wednesday is probably not going to make my wife feel safe and secure.
Yeah. Oh, 1 minute,
you know,
please.
so yeah, I just yeah, environments can be um, yeah, that
Yeah,
team environment. You have to feel like you line up, right?
was this on England because like they do like to they drink here. It's
It
very
wasn't in England,
interesting.
but it's actually in the oil industry in my city. It was with an oil company, and I was just like, okay. And that was my first time I'd ever taken a job with an oil company, and I was like, yeah, I don't know that I'll ever take a job in the oil industry again, just because I was just like, for me, that was unprofessional. It wasn't relaxing. Um, it was unhealthy behavior, and for me, that's just a no go. Like, yeah, same with the companies that place a great deal of emphasis on creating sort of a cult-like atmosphere. They got like M&Ms around every corner, and they're like, we have like squirt gun parties and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I have a wife and kid. Like, I like working here, and I like you guys. You're all awesome, but I'm going to be gone as soon as the workday is over. As much as I love you all, and on Friday when the free bowling comes, I won't be here on that Friday. But you know, with the Christmas party and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, I'm down. Like, I'll show up. My wife and I will be there, and we'll. I'd love to introduce her to all of you because you're so nice. But yeah, at 5 o'clock I'm gone, or 6 o'clock, whatever the number is in your company, right? Yeah. Otherwise, I find it a little bit creepy. I don't know if I'm weird like that. Am I weird like that?
So I've always heard the story that if somebody tells you in an interview that we're like family, it's a huge red flag. It's such a red flag that you should run for the hills screaming. Like, I don't know how true that is, but if somebody were to give me that advice and then, you describe, I would say at the very least be aware. You know what I mean? But I'm not. I can't tell you whether or not it's weird or not. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of like the strange part is like all of these companies are going out of their way to get you to stay there longer. Like Google famously has the thing where it's like you're not that far away from food. They give you all of these amenities so that you will stay at work longer, so that you will work,
Mhm.
you're not staying at work longer to work, but you're just like, hey, I'm here, I might as well, and 3-4 hours later, and he's like, okay, I just did a 12-hour day for no damn reason. You know what I mean? So like just having that. Well, I guess you're talking more about the whole camaraderie thing. Yeah, I would. It's just weary, and I think it's unfair for companies to kind of have that, because usually they have like one way, like you were describing earlier about drinking beer. Like I just don't drink. I don't really drink at all. So what am I going to do? Stare at you guys? You know what I mean? That's not fair. I remember in virtual coffee they were talking about some other activity that completely discriminates against moms. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're gonna go and chill out on a Wednesday night until 12 o'clock. It's like, well, sorry, I have to go home and take care of the family. Because I had a family before, and I'm not gonna trade them to go hang out with you guys. So I think like things like that isn't necessarily fair to the employee, and full well that when you don't go to those things, people are going to look at you funny. It's like, oh, you're the person who doesn't like hanging out and so on and so forth. It's like, no, you're the person who has other stuff that has other stuff to do, has other life stuff to do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think your Google comment was perfect. I mean, the question is do you want to spend 3 more hours at Google? Do you want to go out to the Yucatan, or do you want to go biking along the waterfront, or do you want to? And I think Google's answer to that is that's an awesome idea. Let's get everybody to go out on bikes every evening and stuff like that. And it's like, no, I think you misunderstood.
Yeah.
Not with you. That was maybe kind of more what I meant. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, but yeah, it's very sorry. It's very easy to healthy behaviors become toxic depending on the situation.
Mhm.
Because I've been in situations where I was in a group that seemed very healthy, very united, and suddenly it became a little bit toxic because certain behaviors became like the norm, and if you challenge those behaviors, you became like an outcast. And once like a group becomes completely like you become dependent of a group, then it can become a little bit worrying. That's why I wonder if, like, for example, if companies if they had the possibility of just like always being like change developers between teams, if that would prevent this kind of things of happening.
Hmm.
Because how do they call clicks? I think
Clicks,
about it on
yeah,
clicks.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, clicks, yeah, yeah. Those
yeah,
Yeah,
social
silos and stuff like that.
groups,
yeah.
yeah, silos, right? That's a common term, right? That's essentially right. Like that's, I mean, this is the reason why lots of people don't even work. Like, you know, what's a really good example actually of silos at clicks is the hardware division and the software division at Sony.
Really.
Yeah, so like you remember, I don't know how old you are, but so you actually may not remember this, but now that I think about it, but I'm like, no, it doesn't matter how old she is, she's still not old enough. It's the Walkman. The Walkman was famous. Sony made the Walkman and then the Discman, and these were huge products. But that's hardware before software. And as soon as the world moved into software as where the value proposition was, Sony continued to struggle. They've continued to struggle, and they literally lost ground. And it went from having Sony stores in every single mall across North America to there is no Sony stores anymore, because
Because
they can't produce software.
you can see the same thing with Kodak. Like they actually knew about the technology to digital cameras 15 years before it was actually in the market, but they chose, to publish it just because they thought it could actually damage their product that was revealing films. I don't actually know the right English term. Anyway, but
So you
yeah,
cut out right when you said the word. What was the word? It prevented them, or
revealing
what did you say?
revealing films like printing photos. You
Revealing.
know,
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They produced. They
So
had a huge chunk of their business was just photo paper, eh? Just photo paper.
yeah,
Oh wow.
Yeah. I did not
yeah.
know that they knew about digital cameras. Like, and they were aware of it like that. Like, I had no idea. No idea. I'm so going to be looking that up, Renata. Thanks for that little trivia
To
piece.
be
I love
honest,
it.
I saw it on Reddit, so who knows? Might not be true. So not the best source of information.
Right.
but but it's easy to see that. I think like if you don't check things up once in a while, you have the tendency to just start making mistakes that you wouldn't do in the beginning.
Yeah. 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 Uh so I guess I kind of had a question kind of forming in my head as we were talking. How So for like an onboarding process, how formal would you like it to be? Like, are there specific types of processes that, and I mean, I won't say all of us have a bunch of experience with a bunch of onboarding, but like, at least from what you've heard, um, like, uh, what do you think would make a really good onboarding process, or what have you heard would make a really good onboarding process? I don't know if that question made any sense.
No, yeah, it does. But I think it's a personal one. But also, like, when you choose a company, you should keep in mind that what kind of company you want to be working on. And I know I'm a person that I'm not very much into like being completely professional. I like jeans and shirts, and I like to have fun and laugh, regardless if it's my teammate or if it's the head of engineering. I like to make jokes, and I like to laugh off other people's terrible jokes. So, yeah. So for me, I really much enjoy a more personal onboarding. Like, hey, this is the work we do. This is here where you get the good coffee, and this is where you get the bad coffee. No, the important
Yeah,
stuff you actually need to know, not the stuff from the books.
that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, I think if you if you allow for a week, let's say a week to go by, and I do think a week is probably a fairly reasonable standard for onboarding. Like just no matter what kind of onboarding you're doing, whether it's just a junior or a senior IT or whatever, I think a week is like the minimum. Because you have to have the touchy stuff like the or maybe this emotional IQ stuff that Renata's talking about. If it's a remotely kind of engineering type job, like I said, like IT or programming, then there's a ton of stuff. And I think how much of that, like, I think there's a part of it that could be scripted the way I did. Like, these are some of the major pillars. But even within those major defined pillars, you could have things that are like, have you spoken with this person on your team? And it could be really fun stuff to like get conversation going. Like it could be like, hey, did you ask Renata? Sorry, Renata, I feel like I keep picking on you now. That I'm like, I think I've used Renata's twice now. And like, I pick on Chad. So like, have you asked Chad about, you know, where in Jamaica he's from or something? And it's like these little lead-in questions that you get on each page throughout the week, and it's like things that Chad likes to talk about and Renata likes to talk about that are on your team. And they literally told me as their hiring manager or their boss, let's say, that these are things they, I said, what do you like it when people ask you about? And Chad's like, well, I like talking about my home because, maybe Chad's like a big shot in Boston. And so, he doesn't get a chance to talk about his home. And so every time somebody asks him, he loves it. And so that actually gives the new employee a gateway into building rapport with Chad right away, right? Instead of having awkward start off conversations. And then I could give a sheet to every one of the employees on the team that he or she's gonna talk to, and they have a couple questions unique to them I think they would like to ask. Like maybe the employee's a rock climber and Chad's like, oh man, I keep telling Roger about how I want to go rock climbing and I never get a chance to go rock climbing. And I find out the new employee is a rock climber. So I'm like, hey, Chad, ask him about rock climbing.
Mm-hmm.
If you like each other, I think you're a lot faster because people present more information to you.
Yes, I agree.
It's definitely like you're starting to know the person, not just the developer. Yeah, one thing they did on my work was a mind map. So our agile lead, he actually gave us the opportunity to make a slide with like 3 things that we liked, 3 pet peeves we had, and 3 people that we found was inspiring. So, and it gave a moment to actually talk about things that were important to us and to actually get to know each other a little bit more. And I think it's, in a bigger team, it becomes a little bit more tricky, but still, just to give actually this opinion, like this is another human being. It has other interests in other coding. Hey, that's part of being a developer here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I don't even think it necessarily needs to be all that formal. Like, just chilling, asking questions, being silly. Like, you'd be surprised how much information you can get when you're just being stupid around each other. When you're just actively just trying to make people laugh or just trying to drum up conversations, or conversation comes naturally. Like that's something that actually I'm looking for as I move forward in my own job hunting. Is I'm definitely looking for a place where conversation just springs up because people have something interesting that they either read or heard or want to talk about, or something like that. Like, that was one of my first developer roles that I took. That was the environment. People would just say stuff. Like, people would be working and then a conversation would come up randomly, and then that was an hour. You know what I mean? Like, granted, you're not working for an hour, but there's camaraderie with everybody. And like Roger said, you work better together. Not only you work better together, you're confident that that person, as Renata said earlier, has your back. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They will help you if you need it, and you that is a really important attribute of a team, that trust. You know what I mean? That trust that that person won't leave me out in the cold. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I wouldn't be surprised if, well, you know, I'm not gonna say that, but like that trust is so important, and building it is so important. You know, like I think it is a lot of venture capitalists that say that, you know, that will put money into a team rather than a product, or they'll see a product that has potential, but they see the team and it's like, this team is so good that I'm willing to make my bet mostly on the team and not so much on the product. Like the product would not necessarily be that great, but the team will make it work, you know, because they can see the potential in that team. You know, so the team building is really important. Having a good cohesion with each member, you know, is really important.
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm reflecting back on Renata's comment about, just those personal connections, and I think there's a lot of situations where my anxiety about what to say or whether to relax around somebody at work or anything has been a definitely a hindrance to early success, for sure, early success in a job. And I think I remember a time a long time ago. I think it was like 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. And I worked at this company, or I got hired on by this company, um, and they actually didn't. I didn't know that the employees didn't want this role. So they actually didn't want this role to exist. This was like
Mhm.
a senior, like sort of like a, oh, it's too small a company to say a VP, but I'm trying to think of it's the person that was not him, but above everybody else. So like
Like a
operations lead
lead.
or something, you know what I mean? But like operations, so it's like you're above the designers, you're above the developers, you're above everybody except for the sales. So I maybe an operations head of some kind or lead. So anyway, I don't want to put on like a fancy title because you're talking about six people. I was the lead of six people. Lead probably is a better word, especially considering I wasn't in charge of compensation. So, but nobody wanted that role to exist, and so I had no idea. I came in with enthusiasm and energy to take on that role, and I was focused on the role when actually in that circumstance you would have been 100% focused on rapport building and building the relationships. And what happened is just getting I got asked by him to get new business cards made and designed and then made. It was a very small task. It took 10 days for me to get that out of the design team. Yeah, and that designer was a lead designer, and he kept making like really hard and kept dragging his feet and causing so much conflict with me, that it was, but because I'm the new person and I was just completely unprepared for the situation I was plopped down in, I didn't handle the situation right. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know their perspective until I'd already sort of alienated the design team, because he was well liked. So nobody saw what he was doing as bad behavior. They only saw this new dude that's like messing with them, and that was their point of view. It's not neutral. Normally, when you step into a situation, it's pretty neutral, right? You're like, oh, you're a new developer on the team, and like Bob was last year and Jeff was the year before and Janet the year before. You know what I mean? Like it's normal. This wasn't the case. This was like, we don't want you to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's kind of critical information when you're hiring or even onboarding.
yeah, I don't think even it was initially hiring, it was initially onboarding, because if you're bringing a new person to a team that doesn't want this new person, you either should actually talk to the team first, like to understand why they don't need it, and perhaps just explain why they do actually need this person, and then also explain to them all the challenges that they might face, especially if you're in a leading, managing above everybody else position, where your sole job is to actually understand the people, not the product. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was literally like they throw you in the fire and just let you burn.
Yeah. And they're really letting you burn because they don't even tell you, right? So by the time you realize you're roasting, you're already roasted, right? Like the frog in the slowly heating water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The frog would
Yeah.
start freaking out right away if it knew.
Yeah. I think that situation particularly was definitely a failure for management, right? Like as Renata said, like, well, I wouldn't even have said to talk to the team, but it's more because if the team doesn't want them or the team doesn't feel like there's a need for this role, then you know, I feel like especially if the person is there to engage with the team, then you're setting that person up for failure no matter what you do. Like, and the only thing that you could really do is to flat out tell the person, hey, this is the situation. So you're gonna have to spend a lot of time trying to win their trust. And even then that's not fair to that person. You know what I mean? So it's like you're walking into a negative situation that you don't deserve to walk into. You know what I mean? It's like I'm hiring you to dodge bullets. Like what? No. You know what I mean? Like that's not fair. You know what I mean? And then you're going to judge my ability to work based on being actively put in a negative situation. That's not fair.
Yeah.
So it's not on. It wasn't. Well, obviously it wasn't on you, but like I think that was such a significant failure in from a management perspective, especially if
Yeah.
they
correct.
knew. Like if they didn't know, then that you know. But
Yeah.
if they knew, then
I can say that it
That's why,
affected me for a long time. That's all I wanted to add. It affected me negatively for a long time. Yeah.
because you think it's personal. You don't think it's an issue with the company. You think it's an issue with you. But yeah,
Yeah. You just
that's
think
why
you
I
screwed up, right?
exactly. Well, you couldn't. You were fated to fail since the beginning. That's why I think like when you started, the true expectations about what the kind of work you need to do should be given to you. Like, I expect you to actually set in the first 3 months, and that will be totally fine. Because then you know that, well, I'm getting better. I'm still not great, but I'm getting better. And then you know that you're still under the expectation that they put on you. But if
Hmm.
they don't, you will always set the highest that you can think of, and then when you fail, you think that the issue was you, and sometimes it was just that you didn't know the whole picture yet. And you
Hmm.
would only know, I don't know how many years after this job, that it was not your fault.
Yeah. 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 Only after a lot more experience do you realize, okay, maybe that wasn't me, right? I think because any healthy person, emotionally healthy person, should always question what their contribution is to any situation, right? That's always been my opinion. Like something goes to shit, and it doesn't matter how obvious it is that it's not your fault. You should still be thinking, like, how did I contribute to this crap situation, right?
I think it's natural to think that way, right? Like, I think it's you're just going to like it's your fault somehow. Maybe it's even like some comforting thing to you, like I have a big thing about for me is in a bad situation. I don't like bad situations that I have no control. I mean, I don't think anybody likes bad situations they don't have any control over. But like if a bad situation was caused by me, at the very least I can grow from it and I can leverage this experience moving forward. But if a bad situation came out because a giant meteor fell out of the sky, you know what I mean, you can't do anything about that, right? So it's like so people will naturally gravitate towards how I contributed to this, and maybe even wrongfully say I contributed a lot to the situation, where they didn't contribute anything at all,
Mhm.
or or like they contributed to it, but they contributed to an already existing bad situation. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they could have completely avoided it had something else had happened that they had no control over. And then those are the things that are really tricky, because you it's really hard for you to know. Like you'd have to have asked people, and people would have had to let you know, because your experience doesn't let you know that the situation could have completely been avoided. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also part of the job to, even if you screw up big time, you just accept it and you improve upon it.
Yeah.
And then, because like you are fated to make mistakes regardless of how hard you try.
Yeah. 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 The always tell my I always say to my friends, I'd rather be wrong. And they're always, when the first time any one of my friends ever hears that, they're always like, "What do you mean?" And I'm always like, "If I'm wrong, I can fix it." Do you know what I mean? And I said, "But if you're wrong, then you know what I mean? The
You-
situation might keep going on because you're you and you decide what your values are and whether you're going to change and if that's an important change to you." And so I actually always try obsessively so to find what problem I contributed to a situation just because it's the only control I have. It's the only piece of the show, the S show, that I have power to fix, and I'd rather have that and walk away with that. Do you ever find it frustrating when you're in a situation and you're like a company situation and you're talking with your boss and you're talking as a team and everybody's like, kind of like that quiet F word where you're just like, and it's just because it's that sort of sinking feeling where everybody acknowledges it's happening to them and they're completely powerless, whatever it is. I don't like that. I would rather blame myself for more things than to walk away squeaky clean, because squeaky clean disaster means I had no power to change it. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That doesn't make me feel better. I'm sure somebody does feel better, but that doesn't make me feel better.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, it's one of those. I don't like that either, because like a disaster just happened, even if you had no contributing cause to it. You know what I mean? Like regardless of regardless of what you did or did not do, or what was right or wrong, something bad happened and people suffered for it. So yeah, I definitely know where you're coming from.
So we're coming up on an hour. I know I'm just kind of breaking with what Chad just said, but we're coming up on an hour. Maybe take a moment to think about some final thoughts or something to circle back to onboarding, because I think we went into some healthy tangents there. Maybe like just think of something to add or that you felt didn't get added about onboarding, and we'll wrap it up. I know I need a moment.
Uh, uh, so somebody described an onboarding process that I really liked. They liked it so much that they're like forever grateful to that company, because the a lot of the company's culture was really good, but they really liked the onboarding process where they had like a mentor. Like I don't know if it was a part of the team, but they literally had a mentor for a good period of time. I think it was like a month. And the mentor was encouraged to make sure that this person succeeded. I don't know how they did it in a way where it wasn't toxic, where the mentor is like pressuring you, but it was a very, very friendly culture, and I think that at the very least having a mentor, it's somebody who will for developers, knows the code base, knows the culture of the company, knows the project, like having somebody specifically there to benefit from you. I don't want to say benefit, but specifically there to help you succeed, is really important. Not necessarily just somebody who you can ask, hey, can you help me with this? No, like somebody who's actively like, hey, are you doing okay? Do you need anything? Do you have any problems here? Like, I think that is really important, and I think I would like to see more of that, as opposed to the kind of haphazard, like, oh, I'll just help you. Whenever you need something, I'll just help you, and it's kind of like that, as opposed to somebody who you can really rely on, especially early on in the job when everything is shrouded in darkness to you, as far as that the code base could be right there, but until you've read the code and understand what it means, it might as well be a giant blank piece of paper. So
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned that because on my team, even though I've been working there for I think 4 months now, we started onboarding 3 new members, and it was one of the things that they really appreciated it because we set up like a buddy system. So instead of mentor, it's just a buddy. It's not someone that knows more than you. It's someone just that's your first point of call, and this person is just like responsible to actually just check on you to see if you're still alive, or if you just don't know how to log in on somewhere, or just it's giving you a read error. You can actually ask all those dumb questions that you don't want to ask for the whole team, and it's a
On Slack.
it's an easy way. Yeah, yeah. You go there on the channel with all the engineers just asking like, why can't I sign up here? It's like, oh yeah, you just made a typo. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's been there. I think that's appallingly embarrassing, is what that is. Yeah, I understand that
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah.
yeah, I was trying to think. The onboarding thing. One of the things that I think is underestimated. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I have a few different thoughts, and I'm having a hard time coalescing. I might end up fluffing out on it. So I think I'm going to end it. Did you? Yeah. So anyway, so this was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm like super happy that the three of you could find time to do this. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming, Chad and Renata, and providing some insight about your experiences onboarding and the good conversation. I'm going to just move us to. I'm going to move us to. This is. I've only had to do this a couple of times. Just bear with me as I try to move.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Well, hold on.